My husband divorced me by text. I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with my 20-year-old babe. I've already emptied our joint account. Ha ha. I calmly replied, good luck, when he realized what I'd done. It was already too late. The text arrived between helping customers at my boutique. I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. I've already emptied our joint account. My hands didn't shake as I read it. My voice didn't waver as I helped Mrs. Peterson pick out a scarf. The only sign that my husband of years had just nuked our marriage via text was a slight tightening around my eyes. I waited until Mrs. Peterson left her purchase wrapped in our signature silver paper before typing my response. Good luck, my name is Claire, and at 38 I just received the most callous goodbye in history. But while Mark was probably gloating over his grand exit, imagining me in tears over his betrayal, I was calmly locking up my boutique for the day. The signs had been there for months, the late nights at work that never matched his pay deposits, the sudden password changes on his phone, the way he'd started going to the gym, religionly buying new clothes, trying to capture his youth. 3 months ago, I'd found a receipt for dinner for 2 at an expensive restaurant. On a night he'd claimed to be working late that same evening, I'd opened a separate bank account at a different bank a week later. When he mentioned wanting to combine our accounts to simplify things, I'd agreed cheerfully while moving my personal savings to the new account, the joint account he'd just emptied. It contained exactly enough to keep him from getting suspicious about 2 months' worth of regular deposits. The rest was safely tucked away, along with detailed records of every suspicious transaction he'd made over the past year. My phone buzzed again. Don't bother begging. Melissa and I leave tomorrow. I'll send for my things later. Melissa, the new receptionist at his office. I'd met her at the company Christmas party. Watched her laugh too loudly at Mark's jokes, noticed how she touched his arm when she thought no one was looking. She was young enough to be his daughter, naive enough to think she was special. I didn't respond to his text. Instead, I called my lawyer, the one I'd consulted 2 months ago when I'd found the hotel charges on her credit card statement. It's time, I said simply. He just made his move. The papers are ready, she replied. I'll file them first thing tomorrow. Do you want me to have him served in Miami? No rush, let him think he's won first. Another text from Mark. I know this must be hard for you. You're not getting any younger after all. At least you have your little shop to keep you busy. My little shop, the successful boutique I'd built from scratch, the one that generated more income than his middle management position, the one whose profits I'd carefully kept separate from our joint finance. I smiled, thinking of the certified letters that would greet him in Miami, let him enjoy his moment of triumph. I spent that evening in our house. My houses, I'd inherited it from my grandmother and kept it in my name. Despite Mark's repeated suggestions, towed him to the deed, another lucky instinct that had paid off while organizing the paperwork my lawyer would need. I found our wedding album. Mark looked so different then. Before his midlife crisis had turned him into a caricature of his former self. These days, he wore shirts too tight for his softening middle, tried too hard to connect with the somethings at his office, used slang that sounded ridiculous. Coming from a man of 45, my phone kept buzzing with text from him. One more condescending than the last. I've been planning this for months. Melissa understands me in ways you never could. You'd be fine. Maybe you'll find someone more your own age already. Told my family, they agree. We grew apart. It's nobody's fault, really. I screenshotted each message, adding them to my evidence folder. Let him dig his hole deeper. My lawyer would love his casual ad of premeditation, his gleeful announcement about emptying our account. The last text caught my attention. BTW, I ed the joint card to book our flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift. LOL. Perfect. I called the credit card company. Mrs. Harrison speaking. I need to report fraudulent charges and cancel a card immediately. Of course, ma'am. Can you identify the charges? 2 first-class tickets to Miami booked today, hotel charges at the Royal Palm, and I'll need to remove my husband as an authorized user. Do you have documentation of the fraud? Text messages from my husband admitting he used our joint card to book travel with his girlfriend after emptying our bank account. I'll be happy to forward them. The representative's professional tone couldn't quite hide her satisfaction as she canceled the charges. Mark and Melissa would arrive at the airport tomorrow to find their tickets invalidated, their hotel reservation canceled. My phone buzzed. Again, don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay there until you find something smaller. I actually laughed out loud at that one. Did he really think he'd any claim to my grandmother's house? Had his ego grown so large that he'd forgotten whose name was on the deed? Another buzz, and I know the shop means a lot to you. We can work out a fair payment for your half my half of my business. That I'd built myself funded, myself grown myself while he complained about my long hours and called it my hobby. I poured a glass of wine, the good stuff I'd been saving for a special occasion. This qualified tomorrow. Mark would learn some hard truths about property law and separate assets, but tonight I'd enjoy the quiet and plan my next chapter. Morning brought a flurry of increasingly angry texts from Mark. What the heck did you do to our credit card? The airline won't honor our tickets, the hotel canceled our reservation, answer me. I silenced my phone and headed to my boutique. Friday was always our busiest day, and I had a new shipment of designer handbags to unpack. Life goes on even when your husband runs off with a receptionist young enough to be his daughter. Around noon, his mother called Claire. Dear Mark told us everything about how controlling you've been, how you drove him away. He says you're being vindictive now, causing problems with his travel plans. I put her on speaker while I arranged. A window display did him mention emptying our joint account and charging tickets for him and his girlfriend on our credit card. Silence. Then, well, he said you left him no choice, that you'd been cold and distant. Barbara, I have his texts. Would you like me to read them to you? The one where he bragged about taking our money, or maybe the one where he mocked my age. Another. Pause. He did seem a bit cruel, I told him. The text message was inappropriate. I appreciate the call. Barbara, I've always liked you, but I think it's best if when this conversation now my lawyer has advised minimal contact with Mark's family during the proceedings. Proceedings already goodbye. Barbara, by late afternoon. Mark's sister Amanda was spreading family gossip through mutual friends. Apparently Mark and Melissa were stuck at a budget motel near the airport. Their Miami dreams temporarily derailed. He tried using his personal credit cards, but those had been maxed out for months. Another red flag. I know, noted my lawyer. Called with an update. The emergency hearing is scheduled for Monday. Given his admission of emptying the joint account and the documented credit card fraud, we're in a strong position to freeze all remaining assets. Has he been served yet? Not yet, but he'll get the papers at his new motel address. Speaking of which, his girlfriend's social media is providing excellent evidence. She's been posting about their adventure all day, including some choice comments about you. I smiled, thinking of my own documentation, a year's worth of suspicious charges, hotel receipts, text messages that proved premeditation. Mark had been so focused on his grand escape that he'd never considered I might be watching, waiting, preparing. My phone buzzed with another text. You think you're so smart, but I made copies of all the boutique financial records. Half that business is mine. I forwarded the text to me lawyer, adding it to the growing file of Mark's mistakes. Let him learn the hard way about separate assets and business ownership. Sometimes the bestrevenge is simply being prepared. The emergency hearing on Monday was everything I could have hoped for. Mark showed up in his new young wardrobe, designer jeans too tight for his age, a blazer that screamed midlife crisis. Melissa waited outside her, youth painfully obvious under the harsh courthouse lighting. My lawyer presented our evidence methodically. Mark's gleeful text about emptying our account, his credit card fraud, his documented history of hidden expenses, each piece carefully collected over months of quiet observation. Your Honor, Mark, hastily hired lawyer, attempted. My client admits to some rash decisions, but Mrs. Harrison's actions have been vindictive and calculating. My lawyer countered. You mean prudent? My client protected her separate assets and maintained detailed records of her husband's suspicious behavior. That's not vindictive, that's smart business. The judge reviewed my documentation, the separate property deed to the house, the boutiques and corporation papers in my name. Only the careful separation of business and personal finances that Mark had always complained about. Mr. Harrison She then started rambling something about what had happened, but I told her to cut the crap. I had given her a chance to explain, but she blew it. So now she could deal with Jay herself. I walked out and let Noel and her sort their crap out about Rachel. Together, I felt bad about leaving Rachel behind, but I didn't have it in me to deal with that. I love the kid a lot, and I am so grateful to her for saving An's life by calling me, and I wish I could just take her away, but she has a father who needs to. Now, stepping on my way back, I called Jay and told him everything. Everything. He was so stressed. He said that he was going to come back. I told him I had it under control and that they would discharge again the next day. But he was adamant I didn't really stop him. Because I know Hay gets worried, and gun to my head, I could have actually used the support. I know Egan is all better now and we needn't worry about anything. But I know for sure that I am not letting Joanna get away. She has deliberately endangered my child, and she needs to pay for it. I don't know how she will, but I know that she will. I can never trust her with Anne again, and at this point I'm even more red for Rachel. She was so petrified of her mother. I can't even imagine what goes on behind closed doors. Update 1. Sorry for the delay in the update. I know a lot of you are asking for it. Honestly, things have been so busy and stressful at home that it never even crossed my mind. To check Reddit, Jay came back the next day, and I hugged him so tight. I think I displaced some of his organs. Agent was discharged and he seemed okay, just tired. So we let him sleep for as long as he wished. I asked Jay if he had spoken to Joanna at all, and he said that there was nothing to talk to her about and that he would never forgive her for doing something like this. Intentionally had it been a mistake, maybe there would have been a chance for forgiveness somewhere along the line, but Jay said that he just could not bring himself to be okay with this or forget it and move on. I asked him what we should be doing. I had initially thought that we could just tell the entire family what she had done, so that there would be some outrage, and we would not be questioned on our decision to go no contact with her. But when I proposed, this Jay looked at me like I was crazy. He said that we needed to do much more. He told me I had to stop thinking about her like family, because she didn't think of our son as such and that she was dangerous. God knows why she willingly put his life in danger. She knew full well that the noodlergy was severe in Anne's case. And even though her daughter, who's just 5 years old, kept reminding her, she ignored all her pleas and went ahead with this. He said that I needed to look at it for what it was. It wasn't a mistake, it was something that she had done out of pure spite and malice, and God alone knows what else she could do. I knew what he was saying was right, but verbalizing all this made it, I don't know, more real in a sense. I didn't want to accept the extent to which things had spiraled, but there was nothing else to be done. Joanna was dangerous. She had shown this to us herself, and the only thing we could do was ensure that she didn't endanger anyone else anymore. Most importantly, Rachel. Jay asked me where Rachel was, and I said that Noel had probably taken her for the night. It was the weekend, the day Ajahn returned, so she would have had a good 3 days with Noel, and maybe by then Joanna would have calmed down so that Rachel didn't have to face the beer off her mother's wrath. Jay called up Nolan, asked him how she was doing, and he said that she was still very shaken up from yesterday and she just refused to go back to mom. Jay told me that this was the best time to call CPS and report her because no child should be this scared of a parent for a moment. I thought maybe Rachel was scared because her version of the story wasn't the truth. It was a possibility. She was just 5 maybe. There was an unintentional mix-up of the sandwiches on her part, and she was scared that we would scold her. So she put the blame on Joanna, and Joanna played along because she didn't want to gone and Rachel's playtimes to stop over an innocent parent, albeit fatal mistake. I somehow couldn't shake this feeling away even. Though no child could lie in such detail, but I just couldn't believe that despite knowing about An's allergies, Joanna would deliberately feed